All right, ladies and gentlemen, there's always something going on with immigration and the border, and it's not good, usually. And joining us once again is Dennis Michael Lynch. He filled in for me a couple of weeks ago, and he was on with me also. And he's back, and good to see you, man.
Good to see you.
All
Thanks
right,
for letting me fill in, buddy.
No, my pleasure. And all right, so let's talk about this Obama immigration executive order has this, well, some might say unintended consequence, some might say an intended consequence. It's an incentive for employees, such as yourself, who have companies, to hire illegals.
When it was about a year and a half ago at the Gang of Eight bill, Senator Marco Rubio was out there pushing his bill, and he said, don't worry, illegal immigrants won't qualify for Obamacare.
Right.
Now everybody was like, oh, okay. I was screaming at the television because as an employer, I mean, I've had as many as 250 employees, and most of them are warehouse guys. So I could afford to give them a job, but I can't afford to give them insurance. So now what happens, basically, is because Obamacare is only for legal aliens and U.S. citizens. It's not for illegal aliens. So now when the Obamacare employee mandate kicks in January 1, I'm forced to give either the insurance or pay a fine anywhere between $2,000 and $5,000. So if you want to take the ugliness, let's take 200 employees that I had in the back times 5,000. That's $1 million I got to pay. Yeah. But now with the amnesty, I can take the illegal aliens and replace them.
And not pay the fine.
And not pay the fine, not pay the Obamacare. So it's not only an incentive to hire them, it's an incentive to stay alive for a small to medium-sized business.
Sure.
And so what's going to happen with that, Steve, is that all those American employees are going to wind up going onto the welfare line because they're not going to be able to find jobs. So when he says this is good for the economy, you know, basically he never knows what he's talking about. And here's a perfect indication. This is going to be detrimental. I mean, I call this the perfect storm. I don't think anybody understands how big this is going to be in the months to come.
Yeah, and I think you're generous with saying he doesn't know what he's talking about. I think there are those who, and I'm in that crowd, I think he knows exactly what he's doing.
Well, I think when he says it's good for the economy, he doesn't understand the economy.
Yeah,
he doesn't understand how to create jobs. But I definitely think, you know, somebody asked me the other day, I was on Fox, they asked me if I thought it was a loophole. I said, no. How do you not know this was the case when he created it? Of course he knew it. And the other thing I think is I mean, it's so ironic it hurts. Is that when last week with the whole Ferguson thing that was going on, he was in Chicago, and before he goes and gives his amnesty talk, he talks about Ferguson, about all the hardships in the black community.
And this is going to kill the black community jobs-wise.
Crush. And you know who it's going to crush the most? The young black guy.
Where the unemployment rate is already 40%, 30-something percent.
In some places, it's over 50%. So you're going to have a situation where these kids, and I've been to these places, Steve. I've been to South Chicago. When I filled in for you, we played a clip. I've been to South Chicago. I've been to Detroit. When you walk around and you talk to these guys, these 16 to 24-year-old guys, they say to you, look, I'm on welfare or I'm out selling dime bags because there's no work here, man. I can make $1,000 a day selling drugs. I can't make any money. The only place to work is McDonald's. Yeah. You know?
Yeah, which is, you know, when I was 16 and 17, I did that. But when you're a little older, you don't want to be working at McDonald's if you can avoid it. Absolutely. And this is going to be a job killer for those people. You're absolutely right. I know I want to talk about, you have a rally coming up with Congressman Stephen King tomorrow in Washington. What's that all about? He's a big immigration guy.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he fights. You know, he fights like nobody else. You've got Steve King. You've got Michelle Bachmann, Louis Gohmert. They're all going to be down in D.C. tomorrow at the Capitol holding a rally. We don't know if there's going to be 20 people or 2,000. Right. Obviously, we're hoping for the 2,000. I'll be there as well. So if anybody wants to go there, it's noon in D.C. The more people we can have.
And that's at the Capitol. What is it's specifically
it's
what about what we're talking about?
Amnesty. Okay, it's about trying. You know, there's two ways that this thing can really be stopped. Number one is through the purse, right? However, I really don't have a lot of faith in that.
Yeah, they won't want to risk what they call a shutdown and then get blamed for it. Yeah.
Yeah, and secondly, I just don't think when you look at all of it, it will really work. Obama is a smart man. He thinks ahead. He knows that that's what they're going to try to do.
That's what he's hoping for.
Who knows what his plan will be on the back end?
Absolutely.
Right. The other side is the way to end this is that if a president was to stand up, a candidate was to stand up and say, on day one.
Yeah.
I'll override the order.
Absolutely. And that's what the public would hope for. I hope the Republicans realize that. Good luck. I hope everybody comes. Capitol tomorrow, 12 o'clock noon in Washington, D.C. Good seeing you. Thank you very much. All right, folks. Dennis Michael Lynch. All right, we'll be back with the president of the Galen Institute, Grace Marie Turner, after the break. But first, World War I ushered in a very new modern era of warfare that forever changed the way we fight wars and resulted in a devastatingly high number of casualties. Today, we look back at the end of that very gruesome global war with this American moment. Don't go away.
It was called the War to End All Wars, but instead it only served as a prelude of worse things to come. It was the world's first universal war, with the nations of the United States, United Kingdom, France, Greece, Italy, Russia, and 19 other countries declaring war on Austria-Hungary, Bulgaria, Germany, the Ottoman Empire, and the other European-based nations. As the wars before it, and those after it, this war would prove to be a long, bloody, and costly conflict. For the first time, chemical weapons were used in organized warfare. In 1915, the Germans unleashed 150 tons of chlorine gas at Ypres, Belgium. Then 2 years later, used mustard gas against the Russians at Riga. World War I also gave birth to a new form of battle called trench warfare. Opposing armies would build elaborate trenches opposite one another, protected by barbed wire. The trenches themselves became havens for disease and life-threatening infections due to poor drainage and sanitation. The area between the opposing armies became known as no man's land because it was fully exposed to artillery and small arms fire from both armies. Attacks, even if successful, often sustained severe casualties for both sides. So when it finally came to an end, on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month in 1918, soldiers from both sides greeted the news with great skepticism. Neither side dared to let themselves believe their long nightmare had finally come to an end, leaving an estimated 8.5 million people dead and some 21 million wounded. The actual peace document, known as the Treaty of Versailles, was not signed until 6 months later, on the 28th of June, 1919. Although the face of the civilized world had forever changed, 21 short years later, history would again repeat itself. For Newsmax TV, I'm Bill Curtis, and this is an American Moment.
House Speaker John Boehner proposes a plan to fund most of the government. But Boehner wants to limit funds for Homeland Security in response to President Obama's immigration plan. He says the president has ignored what Americans want. In Louisiana, Democrat Mary Landrieu and challenger Bill Cassidy square off ahead of the runoff election. Cassidy criticized Senator Landrieu for her support of Obamacare. Voters head to the polls on Saturday. Comedian Bill Cosby resigns from Temple University's Board of Trustees amid allegations of sexual assault. The Temple alum says he doesn't want to be a distraction. And take a look at this. A natural gas explosion destroys a home in Chicago. Officials evacuated the entire neighborhood today, and police say water crews were working in the area when the gas line erupted. That was your very latest Newsmax Now update. More coming your way in 30 minutes.